right, welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the April edition of the Battlegrounds tier list. We have the new champions we need to talk about, the buff champion, and of course, a promotion or demotion or two as we go ahead and go over the spreadsheet. Now, if you're completely familiar with the formatting of this and the legend, go ahead and jump to the timestamp I left in the description. But I will tell you, if you're not totally sure on it, I highly suggest you stick around so you can understand how to utilize this sheet best. And also, there are always questions in the comments of these videos where I can tell folks just really didn't listen through or look at the whole spreadsheet. And you'll save yourself a lot of time if you go ahead and do that now as we go through this. Now, keep in mind, Battlegrounds is often about strategy. There's so much that goes into winning a match before you even enter that first fight. And so much of that is deck construction. And then, of course, the banning and all of that as we go through it. But the deck construction is where we're starting at now. We've broken this down into three basic categories. All of them are equally important as you construct your deck. You have your dual threat champions, being champions who could truly be used offensively or defensively. You have your more pure defenders and you have your more pure attackers. And you want a nice amount of both of those so you can put yourself in the best position possible to win. Additionally, champions are only listed on this sheet once. It gets way too hectic and crazy to kind of list all of these different spots and have champions end up in different scenarios. And the champions are always listed in their best possible ranking. So that's why Doom, you're going to see him right there. You're like, people will be like, oh, he's a great attacker. You're right, he is. He's a great defender. You're right, he is. He's in the dual threat that's where he's going to be. And then also we have the legend with the emojis will help you better understand or more fully understand what we're trying to get, the information we're trying to get, between myself, of course, and then the MCoC Illuminati. You can see listed on the right there. You'll see that in the spreadsheet that is linked in the description. Make sure you check out all their channels. It's a great way to say thank you for all the information they're sharing with me as we put together this list. All right, now let's go ahead and jump into it. We do start with the dual threats. Those are still my favorite, what I will often start my drafts with. We have one champion that we're really going to talk about today, as you can see all of this, but the one is the big promotion of Spot into the tier above all for dual threat science. The big concern with him was how much damage was he going to take through the block as he's setting up those initial portal blocks. And yeah, against Doom, who's often a champion you're wanting to use him against, there is some penetration there and his Spot's taking some damage as a result. But, you know, if that's the worst thing we're saying about the guy, he's gonna be a-okay. His defensive capability, his prowess is too strong. You often are wanting to bring in a very specific counter to handle him. And even then you might take some damage, make some mistakes. His moveset, I think it's more than just new now. I do think it is unique and a bit problematic for folks. And then there's offensive use and how much damage he can clock out in that first special too. Really is a big deal. And he is very deserving of the promotion to the tier above all for dual threats. Moving on to the top shelf dual threat champions. Now, you can see our first one we're going to talk about, that's what the little microphone there means, is Spider-Man. Now, this is OG buff Spider-Man, and like I said, we're going to talk about the legends as we go through this. That's the dice one we're seeing. That's where it's like, it's early. So, you know, this is more of a prediction. We haven't had a lot of seasons to really test this out, but the buff does appear to allow him to do enough damage in a Battleground size health pool. He's going to get you respectable times. Also, he is a good defender. Remember how annoying those evades can start being. Plus, if he starts getting those taunts up, those sorts of things, his effective health is going up, making it that much harder to damage him. And that's also helpful to offensively, as this is a mode where you want to come out of fights with as much health as you possibly can. I think we have him in a nice spot right there. Let's let time really tell us if he's deserving of that rank, or maybe he moves up, or maybe he moves to defender or something like that. Because remember, as I said, champions are listed where they'd be most highly ranked, where their best possible rank is. So that's why he's got that dice emoji right next to him there. Now we're going to move all the way over to the tech champions, and we're going to talk about future Ant-Man Zane here for a little bit. Now, BMcG and Bitter Steel have both really liked this champion. A lot of the Illuminati does, to be honest. And they all kind of have been telling me, look, Vega, it's probably going to be tier above all. And there's one thing that I'm still holding out on, and it's mainly because I don't have experience with him myself. I don't have the 6-star. I didn't use the 3-star in my Battlegrounds tournament that's actually still going on. We're reaching to the semifinals now. And I want to see it for myself. I want to experience it for myself. Is I feel like his loop really works. But for me, there's a little bit of like, yeah, but what if the defender does throw their special? You're holding block. This is a great way to play him. I'm actually going to put out a video on Hulkling that'll come out right around this one. You make sure you check that out of him taking out a bishop. and you use some tricks to kind of manipulate the AI. But for me, it's like, does future Ant-Man completely fall apart if that doesn't work? Now, I realize I'm nitpicking here a little bit, but what I'm being told is, one is, even if that goes wrong, there are still a lot of safeguards. You don't have to be a phenomenal player to pull them off. You can still get through and get some really nice damage. He obviously is a difficult defender, right? He's the one where you really want those pierce buffs. There's not a lot of those running around out there. So I could see him very easily moving to the tier above all. Is a lot of extremely smart players who I trust who are telling me they think that's where he's going to be. Plus, he's got all the really nice power control and that sort of thing. Moving on to Viv Vision. I still think this is a nice spot. I think her defensive prowess, she's going to cause some problems and get some of that. I think it's called this power drain with her, making people want to take in certain counters and that sort of thing. The reason why I don't have her up is twofold. One is I want to see it. We haven't gotten to see her used that much in the Battlegrounds tournament that I've been hosting. But also, it feels like her loop takes a bit. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to take a minute and 20 seconds or something like that, but it doesn't look like she's doing these 30-second fights. She's not like this pure nuke. So I feel like she's more of a dual threat. She definitely has defensive prowess. She definitely has offensive. She's going to require some high skill. So we maybe someday we will get the high skill emoji. The Battlegrounds monster that we got there, that's the emoji for Suida in my general tier list. But I think her loop, while you might actually get used to it, might be a little difficult to pull off. And additionally, it does take a minute or two. Nothing too bad, but I don't know if she's going to keep up with like the Tigers of the world and things like that. Again, that doesn't mean that she's terrible. I just am not ready to put her in the tier above all, where I know a lot of people are going to want to have her and put her. All right, now moving on to the pure attackers. Like we said, that there's these three categories. There's the dual threats, the attackers, and the defenders. And the first champion we have that is new to the list is Skill. We did talk about her last month. This is Kate Bishop. She came out. There's a couple of things I really do want to point out. Now, some of the things I said have definitely come true, and I feel very confident in that. Is that her damage source? She has those passives. It's very rare for the Skill class. Not many people or not many champions in our game are immune to Cold Snap, I believe it is. But it's also passive, meaning it can't be shrugged, or nodes that shrug it, defenders that shrug it. So I absolutely love that, and it's unique for the Skill. But the other thing I want to point out is for folks who've been watching my Battlegrounds tournament know that the first meta really allowed her to hit hard off of those first SP1s if the defender had enough power. Bitter Steel actually kind of pointed this out. He was the one who was really using Kate for these eye-popping scores. Now we're on to another meta, and the cool thing is this. Well, I'll tell you the negative. The negative is she's not hitting 55,000 anymore. She's hitting like 52. That's the good thing. Still excellent. Still has a variety of uses, and also keep in mind, those nodes were helping all the champions have more damage, not just her. She's fallen not back to earth, but back to more what I think we can more regularly expect when the meta isn't helping increase damage. But that's a great sign in my opinion. As I've talked about in videos, it's like what I talked about with Mantis, why I thought she would get buffed eventually. And lo and behold, here we go, she's getting buffed. Is you want these champions that are resilient, that if their loop gets screwed with or what have you, because that's what Battlegrounds is. It's the toughest defenders, and it's node sets that are often designed to screw with you. You want a champion whose loop and powers or damage sources are resilient enough that they can still get the job done even when these difficult things happen, which feels like a really nice lead into Shocker. And that's kind of my concern with him for now. And I think he may end up in the top shelf of dual threats. And the reason is because his defensive prowess, at least in my tournament so far, is higher than I would have expected. Now, he's new, so people don't know his moveset yet. They might not even know his kit if they didn't have him and rank him up. So that might be playing into it. But with the way he works around Limber and things like that, I think he could be a real problem. Also, simplicity can be fantastic and great, and he definitely is. But unless it's like Archangel, and we talked about this a lot in past videos, is that's why I love these champions that are shutting off ability accuracy. Like your Archangel, who can be shutting off the node that's going to make it problematic for you. So that's why even though he's simple and maybe not the most resilient, he's shutting off the node so he has a way to get around it. Shocker doesn't seem to have that. So I'm a little not concerned, like I'm worried he's going to be bad or need a buffs necessarily, because I don't know exactly what his target was. But if his target was Battlegrounds, let's keep an eye on that, because that does appear what he's intended to do. Now, MSD put out a video today as I'm filming it of his Shocker taking out a Sauron, who's a relatively difficult defender. Also, I'm very much looking forward to seeing if Shocker continues to get used in my Battlegrounds tournament. He had 2 matchups in a really good quarterfinal matchup the other day, and he didn't perform well. Now, he was up against a long shot, and with this node, I think that's very problematic for a champion like Shocker and really almost all attackers. But I want to keep an eye on that as we pull him in the featured crystal, and I'd love your feedback too, because I know some of you do have one. I think he's going to be good. I think he's probably going to stay in the tier above all attacker with the cross swords, which in the attacker tier means they also have defensive uses. But I'm curious to see where he ends up in 3 and 4 months as time goes on. Let's move on to the top shelf of attackers. All right, we only have one champion we're going to talk about in this tier because it is Sandman. He's brand new to the game. He does have the dice emoji, which continuously means on the spreadsheet it's new. This is a bit of a prediction. Let's keep that in mind. He has a really nice suite of resistances, right? Or actually pure immunities, which I could see making him maybe theoretically a defender, but his moveset's not that tough. We've got so many skill champions who I think could handle the debuffs he's putting on. So I don't see him having like this strong defensive use, which kind of moves him out of the dual threat idea or the strong defenders. And then he's a little slow for Battlegrounds, not for the game. He does have that nice SP1 loop that can handle healing for you. So if there's a lot of healing going on, I can see him being very helpful for that. And then also, and this has been pointed out, is often Titanian Battlegrounds is going to her SP3 and still ending fights fast enough to be quite good in Battlegrounds. Maybe that's a possibility for him. Let's start him off in the top shelf. If we see that, no, there's enough scenarios where going to SP3 can still be enough. He gets the damage done, he gets that fight won, and or you're also able to use him to handle very problematic healing, and he takes care of that for you and wins that way. Of course, his value will increase, and we will reflect that on this sheet. Now let's go ahead and move quickly to all of the defenders. All right, and they're all the defenders. We have no changes in defender list this month. I think that's fine. Like I said, I feel like the sheet's in a really good place. We've had enough time in Battlegrounds to go, so I think it's often going to be just about big promotion, big demotion, or maybe talking about some of the newer champions as they come into the game. And I will continue to do this monthly when we have 2 new champions. And then, of course, hopefully we're getting those buff champions and things like that and talking about it. I am going to be very excited to talk about Shuri with her buff, Iceman with his buff coming into the game here too, and then the champions we have coming in each month. And then again, remember, because I know a lot of folks miss this, and maybe I forgot to say it in some videos, but the champions are only listed once, and they are listed in the place where they would be ranked the highest. So Mephisto, yes, Mephisto can be used offensively sometimes. Maybe that wasn't the greatest example. Let's go with Man-Thing. He would not be a tier above all attacker, and I don't think a tier above all dual threat, but he definitely is a tier above all defender, and that's why he is listed there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let us know what you think we got right. Let us know what you think you got wrong, and then make sure you go check out all those channels of the MCoC Illuminati. Those are channels I watch and enjoy so I can get better at this game. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.